Close the door. Books down. Why? Because I'm a history teacher and I'm going rogue. You know, a couple months ago, I did a video on 1976 movie Logan's Run about the dystopian world of 2274. You know, some worldwide ecological disaster has driven mankind underground to live a hedonistic life and die at the age of 30. This period, let's look at the prequel to Logan's Run. Not officially, but it has the same premise. Soylent Green, starring Charlton Heston. No, not that one. Not that one. No. 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 Yes. Charlton Heston. Wait. Hey, Casey.
Yeah?
Is tomorrow St. Patrick's Day?
I guess.
Soylent Green on St. Patrick's Day. Pfft, this was not planned. A total coincidence.
I guess we can go with that.
We'll go with that. Hey, both Logan's Run and Soylent Green are dystopian movies premised on a future world with limited resources and how their respective societies deal with the limitations. In Logan's Run, the population is kept artificially low by terminating people at age 30. In Soylent Green, the people are fed Soylent Green, processed food made from sea greens and plankton. Or is it? Let's go rogue. All right, let's go back a couple of hundred years and meet the 19th century English cleric and scholar Thomas Malthus. He observed that populations rose exponentially while the food supply rose arithmetically. Hey, Casey? What does that mean?
Your guess is as good as mine.
I guess it just means that the population grows fast and the food supply grows slow. So Malthus argued that an increase in the nation's food production would improve the well-being of the population, but that improvement would only be temporary because the population growth that followed would restore the economy to its original per capita production levels. Technological advances that increase the food supply would not improve society because higher population levels would lead to more food shortages. And because people are selfish, the human tendency is to use their abundance for population growth, not for uplifting the impoverished. Malthus then concluded that because the power of population is indefinitely greater than the power of the earth to produce subsistence for man, a utopian society must limit population growth somehow. So Soylent Green begins with one of film history's greatest photo montages. 100 or so photographs from the mid-1800s of small groups of people living in harmony with nature, a young boy fishing, 4 friends in an early car. But as the montage proceeds, more people fill the photographs. In the 1930s and 40s, as the photos shift to the 60s and early 70s, traffic jams, factories belching out pollution, crowds, trash in a landfill, until finally the montage ends with a wide shot of pollution-filled New York City and the title, Soylent Green. The first scene in the movie opens with a card that reads, New York City, 2022, population 40 million. Oh, the world of 2022 is the Malthusian dream of overpopulation, homelessness, starvation, and food rights that have to be handled by scoops, trucks that scoop up rioters from the front and dump them into the back. Years of pollution has created a greenhouse effect where the temperatures in New York stay around 90 degrees during the entire year. Food has become so expensive that only the most wealthy can afford actual fruits, vegetables, and meats. The general population survives on foodstuffs, mostly produced by the Soylent Company. Bricks of protein, like American processed cheese food. Soylent. Working in collusion with the government, the Soylent Company controls about half the world's supply. Charlton Heston plays police detective Thorne. He lives with a book, an older person that can read and therefore help in his investigations, named Solomon Roth, or Saul, played by Edward G. Robinson. When Thorne awakes on this particular morning, the television plays a commercial announcing the newest line of food from the Soylent Company, Soylent Green, made from the food of the oceans, plankton, sea greens. Thorne is assigned by Hatcher, his lieutenant, to investigate the murder of William R. Simonson, a member of the board of the Soylent Company. While visiting the murder scene, he interrogates a couple of people that were close to the victim. then takes advantage of the stuff in the apartment, including some of the food in the refrigerator, real food, and what is called furniture in 2022 New York. A young woman played by Lee Taylor Young. He basically moves in to the apartment until a new renter shows up. He takes a steak and some booze back to share with Saul. Thorne also brings Saul a 2-volume study of ocean life between 2015 and 2019. Saul does some research, then takes the books to the Supreme Exchange, a group of other books that verify what he's discovered, that all ocean life has recently died. There's no way that the Soylent Company could be using plankton and sea greens to produce Soylent Green. It had to be coming from another source. Saul remembers the days before the planet's current condition. He remembers seeing animals and flowers and clean air and water. Deciding that he has had enough of life in 2022 and goes to the local euthanasia center. In one of the most memorable scenes of the entire film, he's taken to a room, laid on a bed, and listens to classical music while scenes of nature, long gone from the world, flash across the screen in front of him. Thorne arrives at the euthanasia center, too late, has his last words with Saul, and slowly watches him die. Saul's body is then wheeled into the bowels of the euthanasia center, then unceremoniously tossed into the back of a garbage truck. Thorne jumps onto the back of one of the trucks, sneaking out of the euthanasia center on the back of the truck. He then sneaks into the Soylent Industries factory, hidden on the truck. He discovers that the bodies that have been euthanized are being processed by the Soylent Company and turned into Soylent Green, then put on the market for public consumption. Thorne is discovered by the goons at the plant, but he escapes. He calls his lieutenant, but the call is interrupted by a gun battle with the goons again. Chuck Connors? Look what modern society has done. It's even turned the rifleman evil. Thorne ducks into a church crowded with homeless people trying to sleep. Chuck Connors, the rifleman, shoots at Thorne, but hits a bystander instead. A bunch of people wake up during the fight. Thorne gets shot, but he finds a random knife laying among the sleeping crowd and stabs the goon. Lieutenant Hatcher shows up and tends to the wounded Thorne. Thorne then gasps the news to his lieutenant. The oceans died. Plankton died. It's people. Soylent Green is made of people. Next thing, they'll be breeding us like cattle. Soylent Green is people. Oh, one of the greatest lines in movie history. American Film Institute ranks it as the number 77 best movie line in their list of the greatest movie lines ever. Then, roll credits. Soylent Green is based loosely on a 1966 book, Make Room, by Harry Harrison, and follows a long period of thinking about the environment in the 1960s. Silent Spring, published in 1962, criticizes the use of pesticides and led to the banning of DDT and the passage of the Environmental Protection Act. In 1970, Paul Ehrlich produced Population Bomb, a neo-Malthusian analysis of the world's population growth and food supply. The book begins, the battle to feed all of humanity is over. In the 1970s, hundreds of millions will starve to death in spite of any crash programs embarked upon now. At this late date, nothing can prevent a substantial increase in the death rate. After pointing out the exponential rate of growth of the world's population in the 14 years prior to 1970, he gives dire descriptions of the state of the environment and the food security situation. He then proposes draconian prescriptions to control population growth. Soylent Green is the cautionary tale of what might happen if we do not follow Ehrlich or Malthus's advice and install these draconian measures to slow the world's population growth. A world in which the greenhouse effect has made life miserable for humanity, where food is scarce, and we depend on one company to meet our daily nutritional needs, where the oceans have died and we're left to feed on the processed parts of our dearly departed friends. It is not too much of a logical jump to see how Soylent Green is a prequel to Logan's Run. The environmental degradation that begins in Soylent Green could eventually drive people to seek refuge elsewhere. The shortage of resources will force draconian actions upon the people. In Soylent Green, euthanasia is available to older people. In the 250 years between 2022 and 2274, euthanasia could easily go from being available to suggested to required. Then one can see the age of euthanasia going from 80 to 60 to 40, until that day that all the 30-year-olds are headed to carousel. But we're clearly not in the world of Soylent Green. So what happened, Mr. Malthus? Here we are, 2 years in front of 2022, the year that New York City was supposed to be teeming with 40 million people, all homeless and living off of Soylent Green. New York City today is a thriving city where most people live somewhat comfortable among the world's greatest restaurants, serving a wide variety of foods of every nationality. Malthus's estimates about population growth and the growth of the food supply were horribly incorrect. Technology has created a situation where the food supplies are growing faster than the population. During the 1930s, 25% of the United States population worked in agriculture, while the total GDP was less than 100 billion. Today, less than 2% of the population works in agriculture, while the GDP is now over 14 trillion. In fact, the United States produces enough food to feed 85% of the world's population, about 7 billion people. Technology has also made available trade so that we can get food from other parts of the world. Avocados from Mexico. We're not dependent on some plant converting protein from dead bodies into squares of Soylent Green. Hey, thanks for coming by. I hope you had fun. Jeff Schmidt, I told you I'd get around to it. Do you remember seeing Charlton Heston in Soylent Green? One of the original Dystopian societies. I want to thank my producer, Casey Moulton, and Mr. Brent Allen for letting us borrow his studio here on the campus of Columbia High School. I had fun, but I won't quit my day job. And hey, when you're hanging out with your friends watching a game on TV, chowing down on tasteless green squares, remember me. I'm Mark Haggard. I'm a history teacher. And I'm going rogue.